Welcome to Concrete Conversations, the Indian real estate podcast. With its history of high population density, limited geographical footprint, and heritage buildings, finding open land for new construction in Mumbai today is extremely rare. For this reason, there has been a boom in redevelopment projects in both the private and public sector. To talk to us through the details of such redevelopment projects, we have with us today Mr. Divyesh Doshi, the director at the Kinjal Group. The Kinjal Group is a Mumbai-based integrated real estate development and construction firm with a focus on redevelopment projects, infrastructure projects, and new construction. Their notable projects include the Crawford Market redevelopment for the BMC, the Kalyan Station Area Development, and the Mazgaon Court Building for PWD. In the private sector, they are also known for their redevelopment and new construction projects in South Mumbai. Today, we talk about the nature of public sector contracting, the models of engagement for such projects, and the key factors in private redevelopment projects. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, Divyesh, welcome to Concrete Conversations. Thank you for taking time to join us here. I know it's early morning in Mumbai for you. We usually start off all our episodes by just getting to know our guests a little better. So, with that in mind, we thought maybe you could talk to us a little bit about your career and what brought you to where you are today.
Thank you, Akshay and Yash. Thanks for having me. Yes, it is 8
Yeah.
a.m. in Mumbai, and the city hasn't started yet. But actually, I've graduated as a lawyer from Government Law College in
Right.
2021, and I joined this business set up by my father in 2019. So, my father started this business in 1994. We are into real estate as well as infrastructure development. So basically, we do government contracting as well. So since 94, we have a legacy of 30 years wherein we are redeveloping buildings in the city and also working for the government, which we feel is a contribution in nation building.
And with that in mind, I think leads us straight into what we would love to talk to you about today. And we know that the Kinjal Group has worked on several notable government projects, including the NJP, which I believe is Crawford Market for the BMC, Kalyan Station Area Development, Mazgaon Court Building for the PWD. So perhaps for our listeners who are not so familiar with public sector construction and the nature of private public contracts, could you tell us more about the process of working with the government on government projects and perhaps the EPC model and some of the other models that are available for such contracts as well?
Yeah, so the projects that you mentioned are the recent ones. So when you talk about government construction, with the interim budget, 11 lakh crore is going to be spent on infrastructure development in our country today. So you say there is so much supply, the market is huge. So the way the government tendering works is that everything is online now. The governments, whenever they want to come up with any project, they are floating tenders online, and there are multiple contractors bidding for this. So it's not how like people used to say, "Arey, ye BMC ka kaam hai, or ye government ka kaam hai, kaisa hai?" But now the quality of work that is happening in these agencies, trust me, it's better than any private organization. So the projects that you mentioned, like the Crawford Market project that we are doing, it's still currently a work in progress. It's a heritage project that is being constructed after 150 years. So there is a height restriction out there. So we've gone 15 meters below the ground. We are constructing two basements to solve the parking problem in the city of Mumbai. The renowned heritage architect Abha Lamba is doing that project. So another project that you mentioned is close to my heart, and coincidentally, that was the first project that I worked on when I joined the company. That is the Mazgaon Court project. So coming from a law background and starting my career with a court building was truly very different for me because I have been to courts in Mumbai. I have been, so the heritage is there, the legacy there, but currently they are not in a very safe. Currently, there is a lot of repair work happening in these courts, so we need our judicial infrastructure also to improve, and the public works department has done a fantastic job with the design and the way the Mazgaon court has been built with all the modern amenities. So that was another interesting project that I worked on.
I think there's one interesting follow up that's coming to mind, which is we're talking about some of these heritage structures. So maybe we can look at how does working on heritage structures different from your typical new construction projects, whether it's private sector or public sector? What are some of the elements that I look out for that are that cater to the specialization on these projects?
So first of all, working on any heritage project requires approval of a heritage committee in the BMC. So you cannot demolish or start work on any of these projects because these are all protected structures. Mumbai has, especially the
Yeah.
fort area, has some legacy construction. Like that is something that we have picked up from the British rule, and even the technique, even the craftsmanship, even the labor that we deploy to such heritage sites are all specialists, be it the plaster, the sandstone plaster, the mallatcrete plaster. There are specialized consultants, refurbishment consultants that are only doing this work, that if there is a broken glass in a bungalow, a heritage bungalow, they will refurbish that broken glass so that it looks as it was looking 150 years ago. So, Akshay, there is a lot of specialized agency work that goes into this.
No, I completely understand. And, I remember a broker recently talking about a bungalow with, Tiffany glass windows that were getting replaced in refurbishment. So there's a lot of attention to detail that goes into these projects. So, with that in mind, with some of these projects, I just wanted to ask about the way of engagement with these agencies, right? I know that we talked about when we had spoken earlier the EPC model, which I think is engineering, procurement, construction. Are there Is that the primary mode of interacting with these agencies to take on contracting jobs, or are there any other different models? You said the tender process is online as well. So, could you walk us through that process a little bit?
So mostly whichever model the government decides to float a tender, it will be through a e-tender. Those days of filling physical copies have gone. So it's all official, very transparent online tendering. So there are two, three different models amongst the many that I would like to discuss. One is definitely the item rate tender, wherein if a government wants to come up with a building or a road, they float a bill of quantities. So that is like your rate card. So the contractor just has to put in his percent, that I will do this work 10% above this rate or 10% below that rate. Then the second option is a public private partnership. Like you must have heard of BOT projects or HAM projects. So that is basically when the contractor is in partnership with the government, where if it's a BOT project, he will be putting the funding, he will operate that, like maybe in a form of a toll or maybe in the form of using that building if it's a hospital building, and try to recover the cost and then eventually transfer it back to the government. Or NHAI, the National Highway Authority of India, is doing a lot of projects now on HAM basis, which is hybrid annuity model, which talks about where 40% of the funding for the project is going to be invested by the government, and the developer or the contractor or the concessionaire, as they say, is going to actually invest 60% on that project. And usually there are institutions and bankers who are funding that 60% as well for the concessionaire, and every yearly the concessionaire will recover it by operating that project. So what this ensures is that there is not too much liability on the government as well. There is equal participation with the private agencies. So both skin is in the game and both are committed to deliver quality projects. And talking about the EPC model, which is engineering, procurement, construction, the word itself makes it very clear that if a government is coming up with a project, let's say a smart city Kalyan project, it's on an EPC model. So they have their concept design, have their concept architect, but they come to they float tenders for EPC contractors, because we have an in-house team of architects, consultants, designers. So if we get the job, we will design it as per the concept that they have defined. So we will coordinate with all the agencies. We will get the plans approved. We will do the entire construction, the entire project management to the final delivery will be done by us.
And building on the same thought process, it seems from the way you've explained it, the different models of tendering and the different models of contract. We've talked about different examples for different projects, but doesn't seem to be that for a particular project, a particular model is beneficial or less beneficial. So I'm curious, what are some of the pros and cons for each of these ways of engaging in public-private business, either for the government or more importantly for the private contractor like the Kinjal Group who is working on these projects?
So basically, from a contractor point of view, where it's a item rate tender or a EPC tender, the contractor is more comfortable because he's going to get payment directly for the work that he's doing. That you construct two slabs, you raise a bill, and you're getting the money. Wherein in a BOT project or in a private partnership project, he has to invest that capital. So depending on the bandwidth of your financial resources, I feel it's a very subjective question, because some like the ham model, wherein because if there is any fund issue in a particular department, sometimes the funds come in late. They always come, but sometimes there is a delay. So in a ham project, maybe they know that the construction should not stop, and they are getting the funding, and it continues. So I feel it differs from the perspective of the company, the positioning of the company, and the resources that the company has. But we believe the EPC model is a very safe
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
a very successful model that is
Right.
working in our
I'm
country.
guessing it depends on the kind of asset that you're constructing also, right? Like you said, NHI, where you can get an annuity, that would tend more to something like that. And I think that also flows well into another question that we had. It's not often that we see developers that are engaging in both private developments and also public sector, construction and work as well. And so I wanted to ask you, what are some of the sort of differences in between these projects? I know you had told us that you are working on redevelopments in South Bombay, for example. So taking on a residential redevelopment versus doing an EPC contract or doing a heritage construction project like you're doing, what are some of the differences? What are some of the things that you have, different things that you have to deal with in either vertical?
Yeah, so I always look at it as these as two separate verticals, two separate businesses. But the common when you have such two common verticals, so both complement each other. Like when we are working in our redevelopment phase, like I feel the USP of our organization is that since 30 years we are constructing, so we know our construction well. So, the most important factor that today people are worried about is the quality of construction of their buildings. Like today, every flat purchaser, like when we are delivering our real estate projects, when we are handing over possession, the flat purchaser, and he has his right. He checks every. So there are few purchasers who come in with the tape. They check every corner of the flat, whether it's the exact square feet, whether there is any leakage, and they should do that. And so what I'm trying to say is that is the importance of the quality of construction. And we believe that because we have a contracting background, and a full in-house team of engineers as well as machinery, so we feel confident when we are constructing our own projects, and we feel we can deliver the best quality product for our customers. And vice versa, our real estate experience helps us in EPC projects, because in real estate, when there is the approval process, the licensing process, or designing or working with private architects, so that gives another outlook when you are also working with the government for a particular project. So you always have that differentiation if there is another contractor, or if there is a contractor who's also himself a builder. So that slight difference is always felt by our clients, and we always go a step forward in ensuring that even if there is any, if we don't see this is my scope, this is his scope, we always ensure that the work should be done in the interest of the project, and we all are working for the project, and we all get paid if the project kicks off.
That builds into a very interesting conversation. We're talking about the in-house capabilities of a company, and you mentioned having an in-house team of engineers and machinery that you have invested in. Could you flesh out a little bit more about what it means to have an in-house construction team or an in-house contracting team, if that's the correct way to understand what it is you're talking about? Maybe tell us a little bit more about the structure of that team, and then what are some of the benefits of having that vertical integration.
So there are many builders who are giving the entire contract to a particular contractor. So then the project for that developer is dependent on that contractor. There are many contractors, if they don't perform, they are stuck, because the contractor is coming in with his shuttering, with his material, his resources. So it's not very easy to terminate a contractor for him to demobilize. So when you have your in-house team, that problem is taken care of, where you trust yourself that your construction is not going to stop. And secondly, when you yourself are constructing, definitely the the profit that you're going to save on the construction cost, because the contractor is always going to charge his profit. So that benefit you can pass on to your customer. And who does not like a cheaper flat? So definitely that we always try to focus on that how we can reduce our costs to be reasonable in the market. And another very important point that I would like to discuss is the structure of the construction team. When we say we have an in-house construction, it's not that we are just subcontracting it to others. When I say in-house construction, it means we have our entire team with quality standards, with safety standards, with planning engineers, with billing engineers, with store management. And to consolidate all this, we are also using industry uh, cutting edge industry softwares like SAP, SFDC. So we want to integrate all our modules together, so that on our site everything is consolidated. Like from my screen today, if I have 14 projects in the infrastructure side running and 3 projects on the real estate, right now I can tell you what is the steel stock I have, how much cement is there in my company, whatever. So basically on a dashboard I'm getting all this. Our endeavor is to use the best technology to save costs on construction, to provide quality construction.
With that in mind, I wanted to focus in on the Crawford Market project, because it was in the news, and it's a very, like, it's close to the kind of story of Mumbai, where South Mumbai is going through that little, rejuvenation in terms of infrastructure and also construction right now. So could you walk us through the some of the interesting aspects of this Crawford Market redevelopment? What were there any obstacles that you guys had to overcome? Was there any specific new problems that you had to tackle when it came to this project? Anything like that you would like to share with our listeners?
As the tagline of Kinjal is constructing your story. So we are dedicated to constructing the story of every client. So the Crawford Market has been a very prestigious project for our company as well. The BMC is undertaking this project, and there were hurdles, but with the efforts of the entire team of BMC, with the architects team, these hurdles have also come across. Like these hurdles cannot be attributed to any particular person. They are genuine problems. Like there are 400 licensees in the market. Where will the licensees go? What is the transit plan? Because their business is being affected in the transit that we take to construct the plot. So the main issue was, where will all these licensees go? Because if there is a fruit vendor out there, his business will get affected if he shifted somewhere else. So this question, the BMC has handled this situation fantastically. What they have done is, around the market itself, transit accommodation has been given to every
Oh, wow.
licensee.
Hmm.
So if you see the area around the Crawford Market, like near JJ Flyover, outside the market in the PN Park area, so every place around the market, so there have been temporary containers that have been provided for these licensees, so that their business also does not
Right.
get
Right.
affected. And one interesting point I want to talk about this market is, there is a heritage fountain
Wow.
inside the
Okay.
market, which is a 200-year-old
Wow. Hmm.
fountain, which actually is covered with sheets. So if you've been to Crawford Market, you mustn't have ever seen that fountain. So once this project is complete, so that fountain is going to be highlighted for the city. That fountain is going to be highlighted, and it will be like a picture spot, like how you have in Paris around those
Right. Right.
fountains
Right,
and all.
and I think it's interesting that you brought up this point about think of the different stakeholders, right? Because and to highlight, even for people who may not be super familiar with, but some might be aware of how redevelopment projects typically take place. If it's a residential building, it's a matter of compensating the current residents for their relocation, for the timeline of the reconstruction, and then you're giving them the house back. But the complication is a little more straightforward, because you just have to allocate for a budget for their rent, for that temporary relocation, temporary accommodation. In the case of a market like this, it's not just a matter of relocating the licensees. There's always a knock-on effect, right, of the business, because you're talking about a market which supplies and caters to either, like you said, fruit vendors. You're talking about like essential goods. You're talking about groceries. There are other goods within that market with that immediate surrounding area which cater to other industries as well. So raw materials for other industries. So there's a huge knock-on effect to relocating these vendors or temporarily rehabilitating their business.
Absolutely. And to take this point forward, like even in the Kalyan Smart City project, when you are constructing the flyover in the middle of a road,
Yeah,
it's a running city road, it's a 9-meter wide road. So if you have to shut down the roads, there are 7 lakh passengers that come
Hmm.
there every day. I don't have the number correct, but there are 7 lakh passengers that come there with thousands of rickshaws. So when you shut down a road out there, so many the business of the rickshaw people also gets affected. So
Absolutely.
there in every public project there are many things, but then the other stakeholders also very kind enough to understand that this is happening for the greater good. So like how in Mumbai, everywhere Mumbai is under construction because of the metro, but deep down every Mumbaiker knows that this like one day when this is complete, that time it is for the greater good.
Perfect. So, right, now that we've spoken about the sort of government contracts, EPC side of things as well, we know that there's a bit of a redevelopment boom currently going on in Mumbai. And my lane and my area where with 10,000 buildings is testament to that. Regulation changes like CRZ may have played a part in that as well. So, with that in mind, since you are working on redevelopment projects in South Mumbai, I wanted to ask you what your opinion on this kind of redevelopment run that we're seeing in the city is. Is the momentum going strong? Do you think it's tailing off? What do you think about it?
So Yash, the momentum is strong, and you cannot attribute only one factor to this. I feel the entire ecosystem is such like so in Mumbai, in all these redevelopment projects, which are mainly cessed buildings, or so these are chawls or slums where the families are staying in a room, and probably there is a common toilet between 50
Hmm,
tenants
hmm,
or maybe a larger
Hmm.
number. So since COVID, everyone has felt the need that even we need our own space, we need our own toilets, and you just need a bigger space, because that's when people realize that there can be a time where you have to stay at home for 60 days. So that's when it started, I believe. And also with the government policies, the projects have become more viable. Especially, I would like to talk about in how 33/7, 33/9, the incentive that you get on the rehab
hmm.
component, that has increased. The government in July 2021 came out with a circular where the incentive for particular projects from 50% has reached 80, 90, or 100% of the rehab component in some cases. Also the concessions on the premiums. So there was, after COVID, there was 50% concession on all the premiums. So that's when most of the developers that are launching today got their approvals. And also I feel that the strategy of the developers has improved in terms of, with so many mandate agencies, sales marketing agencies. Even if a small developer with one project, he's also coming up with proper branding, advertising, proper messaging. He's addressing the correct audience, so that's why he is getting his sale numbers as well. So I feel it's an overall impact, and you can't just attribute it to one of these
Right.
aspects.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And before I ask my follow up, I think just to clear up for our listeners, you mentioned 33/7 and 33/9, and these are the different schemes under which developers submit their plans.
Yeah, so in Mumbai, the development control regulations of 2034, so regulation 33 talks about redevelopment and incentive FSI, basically, it's additional FSI. So 33/7 is redevelopment of cess buildings, societies, BMC land. 33/9 is if the plot area is over 4,000 square meter, so that, or cluster development as they say. 33/10 is slum rehabilitation. So regulation 33 has all the different criterias under which it is basically to facilitate redevelopment in the city.
I think that's very interesting, because I feel like there is a lot of specialization also going on in terms of positioning here. For example, I was speaking to someone, a while back who specializes only in 3311. So, with that in mind, I wanted to ask you, what sort of projects can you take on depending on your positioning? Because like you said, cess buildings or a chawl, if it's being redeveloped, it's positioned differently in terms of the product that you're going to make, and also the rehabilitation flats that you're going to give. So, do you think that it's better to specialize, or do you think that there's a lot of variability depending on the project you're picking up to redevelop?
So I feel in the market like Mumbai, where there are no open lands remaining anymore, the projects are usually area specific more than the type of project. Like, definitely, developers who are doing big projects, they are more comfortable with 33.9 because that's more than 4,000 square meter, more FSI, and it's a complete layout project that you can make. And compared to a 33.7, which is going to be smaller buildings where you'll have maximum one or two towers on the plot. It depends on the size of the development. And but I truly believe like in the Mumbai market it's about the
Right,
location.
right.
कि आप लोकेशन अगर अभी वर्ली है या कोई भी मलाबार हिल
Mm-hmm.
है, कैसा भी डेवलपमेंट है, like whether it is a slum, it is a mill, whatever it is.
Right. And
Hmm.
we've
Right.
talked about the location specific to some of the public enterprise projects, but speaking of the private enterprise projects, specifically the redevelopment, could you maybe tell us about the locations of the Kinjal Group projects that we're discussing?
Yes. So currently we have our ongoing projects in Bhaikalla and Parel. We are also coming up with another project in Tardev. So that's going to be more of a luxury segment that we are trying to target in the Tardev locality. We already have constructed two buildings in Tardev, Kinjal Heights, Kinjal Heaven. In Bhaikala also we have constructed three buildings, Kinjal Tower, Kinjal Residency, Kinjal 9. And we are also coming up with a mass housing project in Dombivali in
Oh,
Neelje,
wow. Okay.
where we want to make 1 BHK units for around 30 lakhs.
Interesting.
So you must be aware of the Kalyan Shield Road, which is like the shopping
Mm-hmm.
street of
Yeah.
real estate, where where every developer has come out with fantastic projects and there is great
Hmm.
demand out there. So uh,
Yeah.
the top line of major developers comes from these
Right.
areas.
And I think the last area that we have to talk about, we'd be remiss if we didn't touch up on it, is stakeholders. We talked about rehabilitation of licensees, but we're coming to talking about rehabilitation of existing residents. And in this case, since it's private redevelopment, I understand that the Kinjal Group would be the one engaging with the current residents. So could you talk to us about some of the challenges there, and how you're able to work with these affected stakeholders, or work to align their interests with your interests?
Absolutely. So like definitely on the real estate front, it is we who are directly talking to our tenants of these projects. So we have a separate property affairs team that takes care of interacting with tenants. But we are personally involved as well. So in any redevelopment, there are three main important aspects that tenants want. One is area, corpus, and what will be the
Right.
transit rent.
Right.
Otherwise whatever you provide other all is also necessary, quality, amenities,
Mm-hmm.
and all that. But the three most important things, like any meeting, if you want to conclude, go in with the answer for these three. क्या एरिया दोगे, क्या रेंट दोगे, क्या कॉर्पस देने
Right.
वाले हो? Because corpus they are going to put in a bank account where there is going to be a fixed deposit, and with the interest of the corpus they are going to
Right.
maintain the
Right.
building. So currently if they are living in a building with no lifts and then they are suddenly put in a building with lifts, swimming pool, and all, so who is
Right.
going to maintain this? They don't want an additional
Right.
burden on themselves. But at the same time they always want that the new building that is constructed is always with the great amenities so that they get a resale
Right.
value
Hmm.
as well.
One last short follow up I had was, there's so much competition nowadays when it comes to redevelopment, right? Especially for the medium to larger plots and societies. There's a lot of developers vying for this, and like you said, the three main variables that we talk about, in terms of redevelopment is corpus, transit rent, area that you're giving. But beyond these three, how do you stand out as a developer? Because see, like it becomes in that competitive range, right? If someone's offering 20 to 30%, everyone's going to be around that ballpark. So how do you stop? What other things can you use to stand out?
I feel if you are honest and you consistently deliver, you will automatically stand out over time because people will you have to gain the trust of your people, even if you are giving offering them something less. But if you build that trust, they know कि ये building पूरा करके जाएगा. because that the concern is always there at the time of vacating, that I'm vacating, will he be able to complete my building? So that trust always should be there. As I said, consistency is the most important, that once you consistently deliver your projects in time, there is going to be a trust that is going to be built, that this developer is not giving you false promises कि मैं इतना area दूंगा ये, but the only promise he is giving you is going to deliver on time, which is the most
Right.
important. So you so with along with that, there are so many regulations in the real estate industry today. Everything is online. The entire building proposal system of most of the corporations in our state are online, so anywhere from across the world can access the approvals, whether this is a part of the sanction plans, what is the title of the plot. Then there are documents uploaded on Maharera website, so everything is online, so that puts an added burden on the developer, but that's also an opportunity, that if you are transparent and system oriented, you get to showcase that if everything is in order, the customers do check each
Right.
of these. Like, I will be lying if I say that, oh, Maharera ka site use karna nahi aata hai. Everyone knows how to use
Yeah,
these
yeah.
sites, and everyone are
Yeah.
actually using them. When we have customers in our office, some like in our sales office, that time they question the sales, that, oh, on Maharera this is written, can you please show me where this is on
Right,
the plan?
right, right.
And that's where you, if you are a system oriented, a compliant company, you can show them with confidence ke dekhiye ye idhar hai. And now so diverting to the topic of Maharera and the regulations that are coming out, there is some fantastic work that is happening out there currently. Like, two important guidelines that have come, that I personally always felt should have been there, is one is the parking allotment. So now a developer in his sale agreement has to actually show the exact allotment of the parking
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier it was like he could allot one parking, but where is it in the plan? That was never there. So what used to happen is that he used to allot a parking or sell a parking and move out, and then all the tenants are fighting because one has got a parking next to a column, the car is not coming out, then the numbering of the parking is incorrect. In the sanction plan, 1 2 3 4 is written somewhere else. In the plan that the developer has given for the parking, that is something else. So all this will solve those issues. Trust me, parking is such a sensitive issue. Even if a person is staying in a 10 crore flat, for a park, for a 5 lakh or a 10 lakh rupee parking, the issues, the, like, he leaves the buildings at
Absolutely.
Right.
times. So, and another important regulation that was passed by Maharera recently is that the date of handing over of amenities also should be mentioned in
Right.
the
Yeah,
agreement.
yeah, yeah.
So what was happening in larger layouts is that there are 6 towers, let's say. So there is going to be a common podium, swimming pool, tennis court for all the 6 podiums. So as a customer, when I'm going to buy the flat in the first building, I'm seeing all the fancy models, the 3D videos, everything fancy, like someone coming with gloves, giving me food and all. And I'm fascinated कि मुझे ये building में रहने का मजा आएगा, tennis खेलेंगे, swimming करेंगे. So I get possession of the flat within 3 years for my building. But the amenities are for all the 6 buildings. So if I purchased it today, I don't want the amenities delivered after 10 years. Probably at that time, I will move to some other building. So, Marera has ensured that the date of delivery of amenities also should be mentioned in the agreement. If it's a bigger layout, which part of amenity is going to be delivered in which phase, that also should be mentioned. So that is a very important aspect, because then fights or the customer satisfaction or the grievances arise from these small issues like parking, amenities, maintenance, cleaning. So all these needs to be taken care. I feel it's the responsibility of the developer. He cannot have that attitude कि बना दो फिर इन लोग करते
Right.
रहेंगे.
No, I think that's very valid because there are literally premium luxury projects I have been to in Mumbai where people have moved in and have done their interiors and the clubhouse is not done for a good year after people have
Yes,
moved in.
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are common issues. That said, I think that brings us to the end of the questions that we had for you, Divesh, today. So from both Akshay and I just wanted to say thank you so much for telling us about this whole different world of public sector projects and also keeping us up to date on redevelopment and the developments in that in Mumbai. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Yash and Akshay. I've enjoyed my time here, and I hope one day you guys will also buy a Kinjal unit.
Thank you for checking out Concrete Conversations, the Indian real estate podcast. Check us out on Instagram for more short form content and highlights from our episodes. And if you have any questions, do comment on the video and let us know, and we'll try to answer them in an upcoming episode.